Praise Yahweh. Hallelujah. I tell you, I've really felt the Spirit here today. I felt the Spirit really moving amongst us. And that's a wonderful thing. Hallelujah. Praying before service today, and Yahweh's dealing with me of something here that I was teaching this last midweek, and he keeps dealing with me on. I keep thinking, well, I just went through this, but he knows what he's doing. Okay? He knows what he's doing. You all know what a zealot was during the time of Yahshua? It was a person who believed strongly in the Torah. And they believed with good reason that it's time for the Messiah. Now. You and I have something that the folks back then didn't have. We got a calendar. About 525 years after Yahshua, the Pope decided, we ought to know more about what went on before. And he chose a monk, actually, who was going to figure up the years. And what we need to know, we need to know the year that, because they didn't call him Yahshua, they called him Jesus or Usus. We want to know what year he was born so we can start counting. There's so many things in the scriptures that you can count from. Not necessarily get them right, but you can count. But these people, especially the zealots, could count very well. But they did not have BC and AD to go by. When they figured out to make this calendar, they figured out year one. Year one was the first year in the year of our Master Lord. So they figured out what was year 1 AD. And they didn't miss it that much. I think he only missed it by 4 years. And I'll tell you why I believe that. We know by their own count and figuring the years that Herod the Great died at the end of 4 BC, which would have been the month we call March. That would have been the end. That's the end and the start. They started it at the beginning of spring and closed it at the end of what was winter. This is how they divided the year back then. As a matter of fact, we did also up into the 1940s. The new president was never put in until after March, until the 40s. Then they started changing things to start the year in January. So these people didn't have much to go on. as far as year by year by year. What they went by was the life of this king, the life of this emperor, the life of this person, and this is how they counted time. Now, in the book of Ezra, it tells us that Cyrus was given the order to go back and build Jerusalem and the temple. And he let Ezra and some people go, but he never really gave the order. The order was given by his son, Artaxias. And that you're going to laugh at some of my pronunciations. Brother Paul is much better than I am. But Artaxias gave the order to Nehemiah. And Nehemiah gives us something to go on. He said, in the 20th year of Artaxias, and according to their own count, which I say is 4 years off, they say that Artaxias ruled from 465 to 425. That means if it was 20th year of his reign that the order was given, that would have been in the year 445 BC. I'm using their dates. Well, these people could count that much, and they knew that the book of Daniel said 70 weeks are given to your people starting when the order is given. Let me give you a little side hint. I've been wondering about something for a little while. I was wondering because I'm going back through biblical history, and you know most of the biblical historians now claim that Daniel wasn't even written. That book was not even in the Torah, although we know it was. But they claim it wasn't because there's so many things there you count from Daniel that simply didn't happen as far as they're concerned. Here they are in 50, 60 AD. And all these zealots are looking around and saying, where's he at? He is supposed to be here. Remember now, they were blinded, and they still are, to the scriptures that tell us about the man that's going to come and be humble and be beaten and take everything upon him. They simply never seen it. They still don't see it. All they saw the scriptures about how he's going to come. He's going to rule the world. He's going to put down all these other kingdoms. They saw that. Even during Yahshua's life. Before he went into his ministry, they go running out to John. Are you the Messiah? Are you the one sent? They knew it's time for the Messiah. They're just looking for something that's not going to be there. I had questions about this battle that went from around 67 AD to around 72 AD. I had questions about this. In the first place, I thought, why in the world are these people, these Jews, rising up and challenging this great empire? I think when we read today, maybe we'll understand why, okay? Matthew chapter 24. And Yahshua went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples come to him to show him the buildings of the temple. Look at these buildings. Look at all this that's done here. Look at the beautiful stones. And Yahshua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Can you remember that phrase? These things. Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Then he walked away and went up on the Mount of Olives and sat down and looking over the temple. And as he sat up on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? When shall these things be? Midweek, I sat down and I wrote on the blackboard. I wrote these things. I wrote end of world, signs of your coming. 3 things. They said, tell us, when shall these things be? Meaning the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem. And what shall be the sign of your coming? What are we supposed to look for and know for sure it's time for your coming? And the end of the world. 3 things they asked him. When are these things going to happen that you're telling us about? What's going to be the sign when you're going to come back? And what's the end of the world? Tell us about what to look for on the end of the world. How will we know? Yahshua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. Now what he did was immediately he gave them a rundown of the first seals of Revelation. The first 6 seals of Revelation. Seal 1, the white horse. The one that rides out and looks exactly like him, but he don't have the word. He's got the sword, but he don't. He has the bow, but he don't have the sword. The word. That was the first thing that happened. What he did here now, he never answered those 3 questions. This is why this can be so confusing. He never answered those questions until he was through talking about the 6 seals. The second seal came up. Brother Paul, turn to Revelation chapter 6. And let's read the seals.
Chapter 6 of Revelation. And I saw when the Lamb opened up one of the seals, and I heard what sounded like the sound of thunder. It was one of the 4 beasts saying, come and see. And I saw, and there was a white horse. And the one that sat upon that white horse had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering, and intending to conquer. You want to go through the whole thing?
Go ahead.
Verse 3, and when he had opened up the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And then there went out another horse. It was red. And it was given to him that sat upon the red horse to take shalom, to take peace from the earth, and that the ones on the earth should kill one another. And there was given to that one that sat upon the red horse a great, huge sword. Verse 5, and when he'd opened up that third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I watched, and look, a black horse. And the one that sat upon that black horse had a pair of balances in his hand. And then I heard a voice in the midst of those four beasts, and they were saying, a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny, and make sure you do not hurt the oil in the wine. Verse 7, and when he'd opened up the fourth seal, I heard the sound of the fourth beast saying, come and see. And I looked, and I saw a pale horse. And the name of the one that sat upon that pale horse was Death. And the grave followed him. Power was given to them over the fourth part of the entire earth to kill with the sword and hunger and with death and with the beasts of the earth. Verse 9, and when he'd opened up the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those that had been killed for the word of Yahweh and for the testimony that they held. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Yah, holy and true, do you not judge and venge us, take vengeance, or avenge our blood upon those that dwell upon the earth? Verse 11, white robes were given to every one of them. And it was said to them that they were to rest for a little season yet, until their fellow servants also, and their brothers, who were going to be killed as they had been killed, would be fulfilled.
All right, hold it right there. Let's go back to Matthew 24. And let's look and see if he gave them the first 5 seals first. For many shall, verse 5, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and shall deceive many. That's the white horse, the one that rose up, looks like him to the world, but he's not. And then you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. That's the red horse. Be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be, wait a minute, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, wars. Get your history book out and look for the last 2,000 years. Filled with wars. But I'm looking at the 20th century where the whole world was at war with each other. Okay? And there shall be famines. That's the third horse. Going to be famines. You got to remember, he's covered 2,000 years here. He's telling these people, this is how this is going to start. Here's how it's going to rise up. Here's how it's going to come down to the end. Famines. Then the fourth is pestilence, earthquake in different places. And then verse 9, the fifth seal. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. Now he's covered the first 5 seals. But suddenly he stops and gives them an answer. This was one that really confused me for a long time. And this good news, the one that we are preaching, the one that Yahshua preached, the one that his disciples preached, this good news of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know, there's people preaching all over the world. You've got Jehovah's Witnesses, they're traveling all over. The Mormons are, Baptists, Pentecost. All these people are sending out messengers all over the world, but they're not teaching and preaching this message that we have. And when will it be? During the kingdom. 1,000-year kingdom. When Yahshua comes back. We will be with him. We will be serving as kings and priests under him. All over the world. And this good news, gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world for that 1,000 years. And at the end of that 1,000 years, we know that the white throne judgment will come, complete judgment, and the end of the world as we know it. The end of this creation. So he stopped and he gave them one little verse there. Here's the answer that you're looking for, what to look for the end of time. What to look for is this gospel will be preached in the whole world. Now then, he started another answer here. You notice he came up and through the first 5. That's what we went through, the first 5. We will get to 6 in a minute or two. But here he comes back and he starts to answer the first question. When will these things come to pass? When will the destruction of the temple and of Jerusalem and the killing of all these people, when's this going to happen? He said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoever readeth, let him understand. Daniel 11:31. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strings, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall make the abomination that maketh desolate. It's what happened when the Romans come. The daily sacrifice disappeared because Yahshua replaced it. Well, then let them that be in Judea flee into the mountains. When you see these Romans, when they come, and you can see this that's been prophesied before, you see that get out. Don't stay here. Flee. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in that day. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. The emperor of Rome at that time was Nero. And he gave the order to Vespasian, go and stop this rebellion that's gone in Judea. And what I mean by stopping it, I mean stamp it out. Kill them. Man, woman, child, baby, whatever you can get to, kill them, destroy them. He landed with his Roman army in northern Israel, what we would call
Lebanon.
yeah, thank you. And he won many battles there. As a matter of fact, that's where Josephus gave up his army and changed sides, went over to the Romans. They came right on down through what we are calling today Gaza Strip. Came down through there, defeating people as they went, all the way over to the town that Joshua fought for. Jericho, thank you. He fought the battle there. And then something happened. He got word. Nero's no longer there. He's dead. He stopped. And except those days should be shortened. Time was not shortened. The days were shortened. He stopped. Except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect, you remember there were thousands of the elect in Jerusalem. 6,000 at one time, 3,000 another time. There were lots of the elect in Jerusalem. But they had been warned, get out, get away. And they were given this respite. Jerusalem was not attacked at that time. There were actually 3 other emperors in the same year, 68 until 69. Vespasian stopped what he's doing, and we're not really told, but we can kind of figure it, that he can see these 3 guys taken over and immediately being killed, immediately being threw away. And he's saying, wait a minute, nothing's going straight back in Rome. I got to get back there. I've just heard that Gaul has turned and rebelled. I've got to go back to Rome. He told his son Titus, you go. You finish this up. Attack Jerusalem. Titus gave orders to his armies, and this is something that a lot of people didn't understand. He ordered that there was not to be any mass murders until he himself approved it. History will tell you that his soldiers went in and did the mass murders anyhow. They murdered everywhere they went. They killed. They had no mercy. Titus is a little upset about it, but Titus is a Roman. So on Titus's orders, there were people to be spared. We're going to spare. We're going to make slaves out of them. But he attacked, and the zealots continued to fight. They never gave up. And why? You remember Yahshua said, when you hear they saying, I'm here, believe them not. And they say, I'm there, believe them not. There was prophets in Jerusalem telling them, he's here. Believe me, he's going to come. He's going to come back. He's going to save us. And of course, these people were zealots. They believed it. Down to the last man. This is what Yahshua was talking about. He was giving them the answer. When will these things be? And this is what it was all about. For then shall be great tribulation, as was not since the beginning of the world to this time. No, nor ever shall be. That's bad. He says it's not going to quite be that bad, the future. Then if any man will say unto you, lo, here is Messiah, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it was possible, they would deceive even the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they say unto you, behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. Now, let's go back to Revelation chapter 6. And let's look at the 6th seal. Verse 12, brother.
And I watched when he had opened up the sixth seal. And I saw that there was a huge earthquake. And the sun, it became black like sackcloth that was made of hair. And the moon became like blood. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth like a fig tree that throws her untimely figs when she's shaken by a mighty wind. And the heaven departed like a scroll when it's rolled together. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, they all hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to those mountains and rocks, Fall on us, hide us away from the face of the one that sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come. It's arrived. Who's going to be able to stand?
All right, the sixth seal. Yahshua has back. He's back. At the end of this, he's back. There are rocks and mountain falls, hide us from him that sits upon the throne. He's back. But first, what happened? And when it opened the sixth seal, there was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell upon the earth, even as a fig tree cast her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Let's go back to Matthew 24. Verse 27. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even into the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Remember, this was the third question. When will these things be? What's the end of the world? What we look for? Now, what's the sign of your coming? For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the opening of the fifth seal, tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Okay? Here's what to look for. First, you're going to be tried. You are going to, he's talking about us. You're going to be tried. You're going to have to run and hide like they did then. You will not be able to walk around with a shirt with that sign on it. You better believe that. Stand up a minute. Turn around. Turn around. Okay. Everybody said, you're not going to be able to walk around with something like that on you. That'll mark you. For his name's sake. In Acts chapter 2, I want you to try to just get a picture of the early rain and the latter rain. Acts chapter 2. Now you all remember that these people were in the temple. They were not in an upper room. They were in an upper room in chapter 1. But these were all Jews, and on the day of Pentecost, they would have been in the temple. And they were in the temple. And suddenly, the building is shaking, and suddenly tongues of fire came around and went down and touched every one of them. And they all, at that time, began to speak out in languages that all these other people could hear in their own language. Prophesying. Verse 2, and suddenly there come a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as fire, and set up on each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit spoke through them. Other languages, not the unknown tongue that people think. And they began to question. And Peter stood up and preached them a message there, and he said, look here, this is what you're seeing is what the prophet Joel testified about. Hold your finger there and go to the book of Joel. Chapter 2. Joel. Start out in verse 23. You'll see what this was all about, okay? Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in Yahweh your Elohim, for he hath given you the former rain moderately. And he will cause down to you the rain, the former rain and the latter rain. Going to happen just like it did before. And I'll read to you what Peter said, because it's very important. But this is that which was spoken of by the prophet Joel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith Elohim, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. That is the early rain. Now listen, he continued, and on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. Just like they did in Acts chapter 2. And I will show wonders in heaven above, signs in the earth beneath, blood, fire, vapors of smoke. And here is what to look for. The sun shall be turned into darkness, the moon unto blood, before the great notable day of Yahweh comes. Like I said, when I got up here, I had no idea why Yahweh wanted me to give this today. But a lot of you were not here Wednesday, could not be here. I believe Yahweh wanted you all to know the answers to those three questions. When shall these things be? They happened back 68 through 72 AD. When shall be the sign of the end? Not until after the 1,000-year kingdom. And what's going to be the sign of your king, your coming? The latter rain is going to fall. Immediately before he comes back. And immediately after that, all of these things are going to happen that he says is going to happen in many places. in many, as Brother David pointed out Wednesday night, there's other places that points out the same thing. I think he wants us to know what's coming. And be ready for it. Just like he told them people back in. When you see this desolation, abomination and desolation, standing where it ought not in Judea, Zechariah chapter 14 tells us this. In that day, all the nations of the world will come against Israel. If you think that what you're seeing on television every day or hearing about these people that are demonstrating against Israel, if you think that that's going to stop, don't believe it. It's going to get worse. Be ready. The wonderful things that Father Yahweh has planned for us is more than what this earth is. You may come to a time to where you may have to choose between your children and his name. Between your father and mother and his name. That's the thing that's going to divide us. That's why we're here today, is because of his name.